Welcome back to Grab Your Brew, and if you're new, welcome. Please like and subscribe. Jodie, it's Wednesday.
Spooky time.
But it's also Christmas, so what's the best thing to do? Spooky Christmas.
Yeah. So we're going to read a story each because they're quite long. They are new to us. They've been saved for quite a while. Bear with me because I'm not the best at reading off it. So this one's called Elf on the Shelf. It's off
They are
Reddit.
from the no sleep section.
Yeah. So Grandma would always warn me that Elf on the Shelf was watching to make sure I wasn't bad. Growing up, even when it was nowhere near Christmas, the elf would observe me. The elf would judge me. With my brother and cousins around all the time, it wasn't easy to be good, but I tried. I tried really hard. When I'd make a mistake and be mean to one of them, I felt the elf staring at me. It would remember that moment. Ooh. I picture it waiting until I was in bed, then running and tattling to Santa. No matter how much I screamed and sobbed to it, the elf wouldn't answer. It would just watch me and wait for me to do something bad. It knew me well. On the 4th of July, I burned Marissa with a sparkler. I didn't do it on purpose. I meant to burn Marissa, but I didn't want to hurt her. Okay, that took a dark turn. And I just wanted to see what would happen. Unfortunately, she got hurt pretty bad. Grandma had to take her to hospital, but not before she got out the belt and whipped me until I couldn't sit down. After Marissa's mum came to give me a beating of her own, I was left watching Neil, my little brother. Grandma was still at the hospital. Neil watched TV while I tried to walk off the pain from the beatings. Before Dad died, that's what he'd tell me to do. Walk it off, you little faggot. This is dark.
Sounds like
I
you went
walked
for
a
some
lot.
abuse.
I know. When I got to the living room, the elf was watching me. It knew. Its wooden mouth was open, almost like a screaming accusation. You're a bad kid. No one likes you. Santa thinks you're terrible. You'll be a bad man when you grow up. It didn't actually speak, of course, but it was obvious that's what it meant. It was the same stuff Grandma said to me day in, day out. And somehow I always made sure, to live up to it. Try as I might, I couldn't be good. At the age of 8, I was already certain I was rotten to the core. Months went by, and my best efforts yielded punishment. If I wasn't accidentally knocking over a vase in the kitchen, I was tracking mud into the hallway. It invariably ended with my pants around my ankles and my grandfather's old leather belt smashing into me as I tried not to scream. Screaming would only make the beating last longer. This is dark. When it was finally over and I inched my jeans and underwear back up, I told myself I'd be better, that I'd be a good kid from here on out. And for a while, for the entire month of November and into December, I was. Can I just say, I prefer Krampus.
Yeah.
I prefer
At least
Krampus
that's only
over
once a year.
No. Grandma Neil and I went out to get our Christmas tree on December 4th. We came home and decorated it while cookies baked in the oven. I remember Grandma lifting me with her strong, solid arm so I could put the star on top. The star had been her daughter's, my mother's. It was one of the only things left that belonged to her. On December 5th, after Neil and I had gotten home from school, we were playing around. Like all brothers, we played rough. With him being 6 and me being 8, I was quite a bit bigger. When we were wrestling and I was spinning him around by his arms, I made a mistake. I let go and sent him right into the Christmas tree. It fell on the hardwood floor, ornaments broke, lights went out, the star shattered. In an instant, I was panicking. I knew Neil would tell Grandma. I knew the elf in the other room would learn what I'd done. I'd been good so long that I'd started hoping I might get Christmas presents. After this, though, after breaking the one thing Grandma had left after her daughter was killed by Dad, I'd be doomed. Grandma would beat me senseless, the elf would tell Santa I'd get nothing, and Neil would taunt me with his presents. Something sparked inside me. What if the elf hadn't seen what happened? What if Neil didn't tell Grandma? I was very busy for about an hour. By the time I was done, Grandma would be back from work any minute. I knew I might not fool her, but I'd fool the elf. That was most important. It was him who would talk to Santa, not Grandma. I wore Neil's face into the living room. Whoa! And looked at the elf on the shelf. He stared back with his blue, judgmental eyes. I'm sorry I knocked over the tree and broke the ornament, I said, doing my best impression of Neil's high voice. I thought about his body cooling on the kitchen floor and his blood making a mess everywhere. Maybe Grandma would believe he fell on a knife if I cried hard enough. Under the mask of my brother's skin, I peered at the elf through the eye holes. The skin tasted awful, but I had to breathe through my mouth because the nose holes lined up right. I wondered if the elf believed me. "I'm sorry, Elf," I squeaked again. I heard the garage door rising and a car pulling inside. Grandma was home. I felt a new rush of panic. I glared through the cold mask at the arbiter of my Christmas fortune. The door connecting the garage to the kitchen opened, and I heard my grandmother's shrill, hysterical shriek. "Elf," I whispered, as tears mixed with my brother's blood and cascaded down my face. The elf on the shelf turned its head 360 degrees as its mouth opened and closed. When it faced me, it spoke. "You've been very bad, Neil." I fell to my knees in incomprehensible relief. Some part of me heard Grandma still screaming, somehow even louder when she came into the room and saw me. Again the elf spoke. "You've been terrible, Neil." Grandma whirled around and looked at the elf, but then shook her head back and forth like she was trying to get a hold of herself. I stood up, not wanting to ruin the illusion for the elf. I held the mask to my face until I left the room and sat down in the kitchen. Grandma didn't try to hit me. She didn't touch me at all. I piled the skin back on Neil's head and told Grandma he fell. She didn't answer. It didn't matter, though. 20 days later, in my own warm room at the hospital, I got some very nice Christmas presents. The doctors and nurses were so kind and gentle with me. One even hugged me after I'd opened my gifts. The gifts weren't exactly what I'd hoped for, but they were better than nothing. So much better. I giggled to myself as I was hugged. When the nurse asked what I was laughing at, I lied and told her I remembered a funny joke. She smiled, and I was surprised to see a tear running down her cheek. I didn't think much of it, though. All that matters was I'd won. I'd finally fooled the elf on the shelf. Jesus Christ!
I did not see that going there.
I didn't!
Oh my
What?
days. I was just thinking, oh God,
my
he's going to get
God.
another beating. I didn't want to expect him was going to murder his brother and steal his
I know.
face.
I know, when he
But
said
that shows you what years of abuse can do to somebody mentally.
Jesus.
So I have another one here from No Sleep, posted by Lighthouse Horror. It was actually posted 6 years ago, but I got permission last year to use it. And it's called "I Waited for Santa Claus on Christmas Day. Something horrifying visited me that night instead." Have you ever seen something so horrifying that you know deep down it will replay in your dreams forever? Some time ago, when I was just a boy, I had one dream: to finally meet the real Santa Claus. That December, I had been completely obsessed with photography and video, and had been recording and taking pictures of everything in sight. I even still have some pictures and videos from the Christmas. I had taken pictures of everything. The trees outside of our home, the fireplace, even a batch of burnt gingerbread cookies my mother had taught me how to bake earlier in the week. I was a pretty straight-laced kid, and I was the last kid I knew still believed in Santa. "Don't tell me you still believe in Santa," my friend Chris had said, to which I replied nothing. I was a stubborn little boy, and I knew for a fact that if I truly believed enough, that I would indeed see something amazing after the clock struck midnight, becoming Christmas Day. I was right. Sort of. If you would like to continue living a blissful ignorance, this is why you should stop reading. Maybe it's better you don't know the truth. As I said, carrying around a camera was my thing, Ron Howard style. That year on Christmas Eve, I had planned to be the first child on Earth to get concrete proof of Santa's existence. In my young mind, I had seen newspapers and news channels around the globe showing my evidence. They would interview me, the little boy who had proved everyone wrong, and maybe the people would finally start believing in Santa. That evening, my mother and father took turns tucking me into bed before shuffling off back to their room. They had no idea what I had planned. After hearing their door close gently with a click, I headed downstairs to scout out the living room, where I could place the camera to give me the absolute best chance of getting a video of him. As the hours passed uneventfully, I moved the camera around to record various locations of the fireplace, the outside window, the kitchen, where I had placed the poorly made gingerbread cookies. Don't judge me, I tried my best. Time continued to pass, and it wasn't until I first heard the clock strike midnight that something unexpected happened. I heard the basement door open slowly. That was odd, I thought. Santa was supposed to come from the chimney. Part of me wanted to rush over to greet him, but I found another large part of myself telling me to hide and wait to see what happened next. I chose my parents' new couch in the corner of the room as a hiding spot, running behind and peeking ever so slightly around the corner towards a Christmas tree. Nothing happened for a few moments, and I was beginning to wonder if I had imagined the sound coming from the basement door creaking altogether. And then I heard the whistling. But it wasn't jingle bells or anything like that. No, it wasn't cheerful, and it certainly didn't contain a holiday spirit. The snow had started to fall more steadily outside, and for some reason the odd whistling had suddenly made me realize how completely isolated the three of us were out here. My father had bought a small cabin some time ago, the nearest neighbour being half a mile away or more. It seemed even further in the blizzard. This was my first, and I had been very excited about being snowed in for a few days. That wasn't until the thought occurred to me about being snowed in with something else that had no business being there. The wind began to push against the window of our secluded home as well, seeming to hit all sides at once. Wow, my parents could sleep through anything, it seemed. My eyes pulled away from the chaotic weather outside of my home and back towards the basement door. And then I saw him, or should I say, it, coming slowly closer. The figure was cloaked and seemed to float just above the living room floor. Did I think about screaming? Yes. Yes, I did. Looking back, though, I'll give myself credit. I stayed calm, and perhaps this was Santa after all. I decided to wait and see what happened. It seems that the tall figure hadn't seen me peeking out from behind the couch, because it just kept floating towards the Christmas tree and fireplace. Whatever it was, it began to whistle again, and this time I was able to identify the tune. Silent Night. The melody was off rhythm, and was the only time in my life I'd heard the song, and it made me feel very uneasy. I realize how insane the next part is going to sound if we haven't gotten there, but as I watched the tall figure near the Christmas tree, I could hear it begin to sniff deeply. The tree swayed and shook against the force of the creature's nostrils, and then it began to speak. Come out, little boy. A shiver went up my spine. He had seen me. There would be no more hiding any more. Take a deep breath. I summoned the courage to stand. Come closer, the voice hissed. I took a small step. Closer, the snake-like voice continued. Snake-like voice? I heeded the words, walking towards it until the tall figure stood directly in front of me. I felt small in its shadow, smaller than I ever had. Are you him? The creature made a soft, almost inaudible noise. Perhaps it was laughter, but then pulled the cloak away and revealed itself. I fainted. When I came to, the creature was standing where I had been, a soft grin plastered to his face. You aren't the first one who fainted at the sight of me. You're lucky I didn't eat you. Eat me? I stammered. Yes, but that would be only fair. It's offensive to faint at the sight of somebody you know. Fair play. I said nothing, only staring up at the creature. Though I've tried to forget its form, I can still remember it clearly. It was thin, terribly thin, and its face was beyond imagining. Though its teeth were clearly visible, I could see no eyes, and what looks like thorns protruded from his chest and of his head. Branches extended from the thing's body in all directions, and it dragged what looked like to be a sack behind it. To answer your question, no, I'm not Santa Claus. The creature knelt down near me, and I could feel its icy breath push against my eyes and face. But I know him, it said. You do? I asked. The creature nodded. Of course, he is my brother. This is Krampus. And the news that this terrifying monster was the brother of Santa Claus took a long time for my childhood brain to process, at the end of which I was probably even more confused than before. How? I asked. The creature paused. Well, normally I don't share such things, but I admire your courage, it sighed. But it's been a long while since I've spoken with anybody, even a boy. It smiled, showing its sharp teeth, and then continued. For every good act in the world, there is an evil one. For every kind gift, there must be an unkind. I bring balance to the good my brother spreads. I bring evil, I whispered, finishing his words. The creature nodded as if pleased. You are a smart boy. So far, I'm glad I haven't eaten you. Nice. My mind churned again, and the next question popped quickly into my mind. Truth be told, I didn't want to ask. So what evil have you brought us? There was a long silence then before I replied. You are very wise. Are you sure you want to know? I nodded, and it smiled back. Very well. Though my gifts will not take effect on this day, their influence will be felt throughout the years and beyond. It pulled out a sack that followed closely behind and set it on the floor before me. There was only one gift inside, which upon a closer look had both my mother and father's name written neatly on a dark card that sat on top of the box. Open if you dare, it whispered. As I knelt down next to the presents in the room seemed to grow colder. The wind swirled violently. Now just outside the foggy glass, the light flickered on and off as I began to unwrap the small box. I laid the wrapping paper down neatly, piece by piece, on top of the tree's red and white Christmas skirt. Looking up at the creature, I said 2 words. I'm afraid. Its long, thin arms reached out towards me then, finally, settling on my closest shoulder. Though I still could not see the creature's eyes, it seemed to gaze at me, nothingness. It seemed to be thinking as it cocked its head from one side to the other. Look upon my face, little child. I have been deformed and mishappen by the evils that are mine to bear. I cannot change my form any more than you can change the fate of your family. All I can do is bear it. Though still afraid, I was suddenly overcome with a great sympathy for the creature. I'm sorry, I said. It seemed taken aback for a moment before replying. Don't be fooled, little child. I am not fully innocent. The box before me broke open, then revealing a blinding shine of dark purple, the colour of a vibrant spring first bloom. It bathed the room in its deep shade as the box pulsated in front of my eyes. I couldn't help it. I looked deep into into the calling purple, into worlds unseen. I saw the creatures of my nightmares, monsters, malevolent beings, some as tall as the sky above. But worst of all, I saw my parents. It was a rainy day as my father drove home from work, his briefcase on the passenger seat, and a worried look in his eyes as he squinted through his windshield. The rain came down. No, Dad. He couldn't see the large semi had gently pushed beside him. It drifted closer into his lane, then stop. I don't want to see it, I cried to the creature. But it was too late. The truck overtaking my father and pushing his car into the bridge guardrail. I wish I could say he didn't suffer. A violent wave of purple as my eyes were taken elsewhere. A hospital. No, 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 please, I said. It was my mother receiving the cancer diagnosis and lying alone in the hospital bed. She stared out into the darkness. I can't take this, I told the creature. Maybe I imagined it. But to this day I think it gave me a small look of pity. It knelt closer. She'll live, it said. Why are you showing me this? I asked, holding back tears. The basement door opened again with a creak, and the creature fell backwards into the floor, sticking its head out, letting out a sigh. I realized then that as terrifying as the thing was, there was still one that even it must answer to. I must go, it whispered, pulling the cloak over its bony head and concealing its form. Once more, I watched as it floated back towards the basement steps, and then said the words, I will always remember. Be afraid for what is to come, child, but do not let it consume you as it has me. I watched the figure begin to fade into the darkness, the last proof of its existence being the soft words that it carried there, way through the air and into my ears. For only in death and suffering will you find life. Ooh, I wouldn't say that one was scary, but it was like a life lesson thing. And yeah, but
It's
that's
like a modern folk tale, isn't it? It's very Krampus-like.
It's like Krampus meets death. Like if death and Krampus had a child.
That's what Krampus is, though, isn't it, really?
He doesn't cause everybody to die, though. He just takes kids and beats them. Christmas tale of Lane, you know that sometimes the dark stuff needs sympathy too. If you're scared of it, talk to it.
Hey.
Or as Jodie says, start running towards it and see if it wants a brew.
Yeah. Confuse it.
Yeah.
In all these horror movies, people are running away. It's like, confuse the hell out of it and run at it.
Yeah. Just like if a serial killer started chasing me, I wouldn't be the one that falls down the stairs and breaks my ankle. I'd start running at it and confuse it.
Yeah.
Alright guys, that's it from us. I hope you guys are ready for Christmas. We will have more spooky Christmas stories next week. And have an amazing week. Bye. Subscribe.
Bye.